Hey guys, it's Steve with Knoxville Tai Chi. I run a member school with Clear Tai Chi in the Knoxville area. Today I'm going to be following up on a conversation I had with a gentleman who I had the conversation with on Zhongding about how the video was more of a theatrical production and didn't really demonstrate the Minuté principles of Zhongding. And then I made a video on Zhongding that ended up being 16 minutes. I'll try not to have it last this long. But last night we were talking about Qi energy. And it was really hard for me to communicate to him what Qi energy was according to the traditional Chinese medicine, of where you have the E and then the Qi follows the E and the blood follows the Qi, because there's a linguistic barrier, because Qi just means energy, right? Well, literally it could be, the symbol means breath, but it can be any kind of energy. And so then to specify it in, Tai Chi, Qi energy is one of the developmental levels of progression. What are we talking about here? And it's, for a number of reasons, a large part of debate and a large part of miscommunication and misconception. So today I'm going to go over a little bit of what Qi is in Tai Chi, as far as if there's 8 stages of developmental progress in Tai Chi, the energy stage, Qi energy stage, is level 2. It's right after the physical stage. So it's important, because if you're going to get to mind training or heart mind training or any of the Jin skills, or, spirit training, void training, or whatever, you have to get through Qi energy training. And the physical level prepares the body to do that, creates the body into a vessel to hold and harness and circulate and balance and store and all this stuff, the Qi energy. But if you don't believe Qi energy is real or don't know what it is, then there's an issue to accessing that level and then all the levels above it. So with that being said, without further ado, the language barrier. So the language barrier of Qi energy is that if one person has experience and knows what Qi energy is and another person has not, and they're, for example, on Facebook and don't have a way to communicate in physical location where one person can just show the other person what they're talking about, if the person that knows what Qi energy is, as far as how it relates to traditional Chinese medicine and Tai Chi, and they say that, the other person that doesn't know can't be on the same page because they've never had the experience of the person that did know. So that's the first problem. Now, one of the things, again, it comes back because, as far as the Ting Jin, or listening ability to have the sensitivity to feel Qi energy, it's one of the most important Jins in the Tai Chi curriculum, but it's one of the most slowly progressing in as far as training. So if you're just going to start out, almost everybody starts out, unless you try as like a little kid and you haven't lost the ability yet, that you don't feel Qi. And so you have to have take that first step of faith, like, okay, so someone says there's something like this, I want to know more about it. So what do I do to go do that? And then the answer to that is obviously Qigong energy work, which the first thing it does is establishes the mind, mental, will, consciousness to the Qi energy in and outside the body, so you can begin to feel it. Because rule number 1 of Qi manipulation, you can't affect what you can't feel. So, Qigong, like mystical powers of moving Qi energy, is like, no, well, not really. Well, first you have to be aware that it exists, and to do that you have to feel it, and to feel it you do the Qigong exercises, starting out physical Qigong exercises. So that's what Qigong, at least at the basic level, is supposed to do. It reconnects the mind, the feeling part of the mind, the perceiving part of the mind, with the Qi energy, slowly, gradually. And as far as in my journey, I took a traditional Chinese medicine. One of the 5 pillars is medical Qigong, and then one of the subsets of, so you've got traditional Chinese medicine, medical Qigong, and then a form of medical Qigong called Fa Gong, or Fa Gong, Fa mean emitting, like in Fa Zhen, and then Gong just mean work, like in Kung Fu or Qigong. And it really, what it does, it's fascinating how it works, because it's a non-contact. So there comes the part that people don't believe, right? But it affects, but basically whenever there's an injury or a misbalance, illness, whatever, anything that's not optimal in the body, inside the body, it'll have a resonance in the Wei Qi field. And if you don't know what Wei Qi field, it's just if the energy body had skin, the Wei Qi field would be that skin, so it acts as like a protective barrier. And so if there's, imbalances inside the body, there'll be imbalances in the Wei Qi field. But it works the other way too. If you balance the Wei Qi field, the injuries in the body or sickness in the body will balance. Now it gets a little, it gets more complicated than that, but that's the basic idea. So this is how I was introduced to it, which kind of like freaking blew my mind, because I didn't know Qi existed. And now I'm seeing, I can feel it in my body. Like one of the first things we learn how to treat is arthritis. And it has a very distinctive feel. If you have like arthritis in your fingers, you can run your hand over it, feel it in the Wei Qi field. It has a very distinct feeling. make the modification using the Falun Gong method in the Wei Qi field, and then the arthritis gets treated that way. Sometimes you can get, if it's not like horrible, like genetic, or like, if you're not like super old arthritis, you can get it to go away completely in just one session. So it's an extremely effective method for medical Qigong, and that was my introduction. Now with the Tingjin, the listening energy, it was after one seminar of that, my ability to feel Qi energy was so low. I could like hold up my hand and try to feel like heaven energy, and I'm like, am I feeling it? I don't know if I'm feeling it or not. And really, that's how everybody starts. Almost everybody starts that way. So when you start doing this, if you hear me talking to you right now and want to pursue this and believe that there's possibility that this could be a real thing, don't get discouraged if it's just like, it's like, oh, is it in my head? Is it not in my head? One of the things you have to do is you got to get a good teacher or someone who already can do this well, like myself. If we were in person, I could give you feedback on what you were feeling and whether or not it was real or not, and then you can bounce off, or I could tell you, which is the more impressive thing. It's like, you're feeling this, you're thinking this, you're thinking this, you're feeling this. And then you would know it's real, because it's like, how does he know? It can't be in my head if he's telling it to me, because then it's in his head, right? And but another problem, and so that's the linguistics barrier. You have to have the experience for yourself. Now the other barrier is it's invisible, and of course, if something doesn't exist, you have to say it's invisible. So there's a suspicious factor there. One of the ways you can take out the suspicious factor, as far as not proving she exists, but opening up the possibility it might exist, and that being invisible maybe not necessarily be an inconceivable possibility, is all energy is invisible. Light's invisible unless it reflects off something. Electricity is invisible, and if you see like the electric spark or lightning, that's just because of the ions in the air. Gravity is invisible. You can't see gravity. So like, and then you could say chemical reactions are visible, but then that's based off the actual molecules and atoms in the reaction. So energy in its purest form, again, I might be wrong if you're like a PhD physicist and you're some advanced state of the art whatever, but if you're teaching to grade schoolers, and they ask, can energy be seen just in of itself, and the teacher knows what they're talking about, they'll have to say that all scientific energy is invisible. Now, again, invisible might not be the right word either, but basically you can't see Qi energy. If gravity was between my hands, you couldn't see it. If I had a magnet between my hands, you couldn't see it. So it's that kind of thing. You can see the light reflected off my palms, but if a light beam was between my hands, in a vacuum, you can't see it. So, and then so if there is a bioenergy based off living things, but we must be able to see it. Well, that's not fair. So that's the first part. Now the second part, and again, I've put a lot of thought into this, because it's like, okay, fair enough. If Qi has effects, then they have to be able to be picked up by the five senses, otherwise we wouldn't know they exist. And if they're picked up by the five senses, and they can be studied scientifically, and science hasn't found, strong evidence to suggest Qi exists. Therefore, that's evidence that Qi may, there's a strong possibility Qi doesn't exist, because science loves to discover new things. And so if there's any inkling there might be something like Qi, they would jump all over it and be doing all sorts of experiments on it, and you just don't see that, so Qi doesn't exist. I hope I laid that out. I was raised an atheist, so I understand like pure logic, rationality, like, all the different ways, deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, non-falsifiable, like all that. Like I understand all that. Like I'm a skeptic too, but I'm not a skeptic that's like, oh, this can't exist no matter what, just because it threatens my worldview or whatever. You have to have the possibility that things exist beyond what you know. And if you think you know everything, which unfortunately is a lot of people on Facebook, then of course you're not going to figure out new stuff, because you're not going to go, you're going to listen to me say this stuff, and you're going to think that, I don't know what I'm talking about, and then you won't pursue it, and then of course you won't find out about it. So to be a real skeptic, you have to be open to the possibility, a blank slate. I mean, like, these are the things I know. There might be things that I don't know, but I'm going to, if I see something that might be something like Qi that I don't know, I'm going to do everything I can to falsify it. And if it's true, then it won't be. If it's true, then it won't be falsified. So, and then verifying it's true is, again, connecting the mind with the Qi energy and in and around the body with Qigong, with, physically at first, and then feeling that, and then getting a partner that can do Qi, and then you can, basically, we'd have, in my Clear Tai Chi system, we have a no-style push hands called Clear Internal Style Tai Chi, and God, it's so bad. I'm not saying the title, even though I've said it a million times, but basically it's internal push hands where the whole thing takes place, as far as like your mind, getting your mind inside the other person's body, Then if you're doing something, they'll react to it, but they won't know what you're doing. And so all this stuff is very testable, but it has to be testable in living entities. Basically, if you have gravity, gravity affects mass. If you're going to test gravity, it has to be matter based. If your electricity is based off the displacement of electrons, if you're going to test electricity, that's the realm that you have to test it in. You know, light being pure energy, not quite pure energy according to current science, but being that form, like there's different ways that you test and measure them, but they're all in their own way. And so if you suddenly introduce an energy that's based off living things that all living things have, you know, as far as, you know, in traditional Chinese medicine, the blood follows the qi, that's the qi we're talking about, then wouldn't it make sense that in order to measure it, it would have to be measured by living things and felt by living things? Like if you use measurements, you know, if mass measures mass, electricity measures electricity, wouldn't a living biofield be measured by living biofields? And then wouldn't that be the Ting energy? And then I know these are a lot of assumptions, but this would be, if you're just making this up in a book, like you're an author and like, I'm just going to make up qi energy, what are its attributes? You know, that's logical within the system of the book. So of course it's going to only be felt by living things. And then why can't humans feel it? And like, that's what Qigong's for. And then even more than that, as far as how you go about using the energy, if it can only be felt by living things, and then with the consciousness, the way I can move my fingers and muscles using my brain, wouldn't it make sense if there's a living energy around me? Because like if my hand falls asleep, I can't move it because I can't feel it, right? But if I can feel my hand, I can move it. So wouldn't it make sense if there's a biofield around your body or an energy inside your body that you can't feel, you can't move, but then once you're aware of it, you can start moving it. So that's another thing too, because all the hard sciences with the energies that we do know, with, you know, physics, gravity, electricity, or light energy, I'm sure, you know, the 5 forces, strong, weak force. I know very little about the strong and weak force, but those things, they're not living energy. So they have basic rules that can be repeatable. And that's, you know, what science normally works with. You could take a scientist in different cities all across the world, run the same experiments with the same energy and the same results. But if you have an energy based off life, well, life doesn't run by fixed rules. Life's dynamic and it's controlled by consciousness. And again, like, how does it, you know, for consciousness, as far as in science, it's not a hard science because it's not, you know, predictable. It's not like the orbit, you know, of planets that can be set out for eons. We know exactly what the orbital bodies are going to do, but then a human being, you don't know what they're going to do in the next 5 seconds, right? So anyway, this is off on a huge tangent. But basically, there is a way to rationalize something like qi energy, like there really is. And but you have to take a step in that world, and I can show you a few things, like the qi follows the E. So one of the ways, and again, you don't have to believe about this, but if you guys haven't experienced this, you just take your pointer finger and you stare at it. When you glance at something, like look left, look right, when you look at something, your E goes there if you're intent upon it. So you can just look at your finger, and if you really look at the details and study the details of your fingerprint and really get in the fine tune and like try to see it and like all the little things, and what'll happen, your pointer finger will start pulsing. Like even look at my finger, see how it's like redder, like the blood this is pretty funny. The blood follows the qi, right? And so I put my mind there, and then the qi goes to where my E is, and then the blood goes to where my qi is. So there's an example of that. And Wu Qi stands in the Clear Tai Chi curriculum. If you do it right, your hands will start getting purple, which is pretty cool. And that's how, if you can't feel qi energy yet, that's one of the indicators that you're doing it correctly, is you can feel the blood in your hands. And so there are physiological effects that way, as recorded in traditional Chinese medicine. And so you could be like, oh, well, if you look somewhere, your blood goes there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be qi in between. And so you can argue it all you want, but there are physical phenomena. Another one, so you got the Lao Gong, right, on your palms. So I'll try to keep my fingers in place. So the idea is there's a circle here. So the way the qi follows the E can give out commands. So I'll try to expand it without expanding my fingers. I don't know if this will come up on camera. So give me a second here. I'm putting it on the spot. So should be opening. And my finger shouldn't be expanding, but my palm, sort of like the part of the palm that a magician will carry a coin, will expand. My fingers might be expanding a little bit, but like if they're the same size, there's that, and then like there's that, and then there's, see how that one's a little bit more closed? So put the same size. And you can tell it to close too. I don't know if it's that. I don't know. So it's like that, and then it's more open. I don't know. That might be the thing, like, oh, if you believe it, you'll see it, and if you don't believe it, you won't see it. But it is a thing, basically. In Tai Chi, if you want to make connection, if you want to feel the heaven energy, you open your palm like the way a flower opens, you know, when it rains, or the leaves open when it rains to get the water or whatever, and then the palms will do something similar to that. Like the Wei Chi field, you don't have to believe me, but like it has a flow to it. So if I relax my hand, if I take the Chi in my hand and put the Chi in the Wei Chi field, and get my shoulders being blocked, but it'll be, so right there, that's the speed of my Wei Chi field, because it's almost like I'm not moving my hand to do that. I just kind of like feel the energy flow. And even then you can see my hand like start vibrating. So there are physical effects. Like, you don't have to believe me. It's like, oh yeah, he's making that up with the Wei Chi field. But like, if you put your mind in my body, like there's a very real thing going on there. And, you know, I didn't learn it in the first, you know, seminar doing Fa Gong, you know, skating Wei Chi fields or whatever. But eventually, as your sensitivity builds more and more, you get your Ting Jin going on more and more, these things become more and more obvious, and they're less and less superstition and like, oh, is it real? Is it not real? Or like that guy, you know, talking on a video right now, full of crap and doesn't know what he's talking about, right? And you just gotta think, well, okay, maybe there's something out there I don't know, and like, okay, I'll do what I need to do, because it's a process of exploration too. With me and Tai Chi, it wasn't about the fighting or the health. I just wanted to know what a human being could do, and when I found out she was real, I was like, I have to know this, and so I just maxed out Qigong like 5 times a day for a year and a half, and then went into, you know, higher levels of training. But so for me, it's just a lot of fun, and that's why I know a lot of this stuff. But anybody, as far as we know, anybody can do it. My teacher says there's one guy he's met who had like physical deformities and wasn't able to feel Chi energy, but it's something accessible to pretty much anybody if you want to do that. So, and I'm sure there's stuff here that I haven't gone into yet. But basically, when you talk about Chi energy, if you're talking about traditional Chinese medicine, where the Chi follows the Yi and the blood follows the Qi, and like that's the Qi we're talking about, the biofield Qi that can be controlled by human consciousness and will, can be shaped by the Yi and the will and the awareness of a human being, and maybe why that'd be a little difficult for science to, you know, pick up on. That's what I'm talking about. It's not some force in Star Wars or mystical. It's very practical, it's very real, it's very tangible. You can do very clear tool, like as a tool, do things with it. And you don't have to believe me, just believe me enough to take anything I've said in this video and just go find it. Just fly, be free. Like the people that know this are watching this video and they know what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then take this video as a chance to step into the larger world. Because you really, if you're gonna train in Tai Chi, that's level 2. Like really, like you got to start doing this. Like, so anyway, that's 18 minutes. You guys have a good day.